The Far Quest, The Chronicles of Cursoon, Book 1, by R. Jason Lynch, copyright 2016 EMP 2023, all rights reserved. Chapter 1, Drowning in Fear. Livid found herself surrounded by a darkness so black that she could see nothing at all. In fact, it was so dark that she scarcely believed she had even opened her eyes. Within this utter blackness, she felt herself being carried along by huge waves that bore her up and then dropped her down again. It was like sliding up a hill and then back down the other side. All the while, she struggled to keep herself from going under. At the same time, the nothingness around her was almost completely silent. The only sounds she could hear were her own rapid gasping breaths and the noise of her limbs thrashing in the water. Suddenly, the darkness was interrupted by a twisted bolt of soundless lightning that illuminated the world with flashes of bluish-white light. Thus, the light filled the blackness so that she could see the waves that swelled and coiled around her. To her terrified gray eyes, the massive waves looked like a gigantic side-winding serpent moving over the surface of the sea. Seconds later, the silence was shattered by the booming of thunder so loud that it shook the heavens and so powerful that Livid could feel it deep within her terrified soul. Then the light vanished as quickly as it had come, and how Livid longed for its return. Though the lightning was dreadful in its power, she preferred it over the empty blackness that stretched out around and under her. The utter vastness and darkness of the sea was far more terrifying than even the most furious claps of thunder. To Livid's relief, the lightning danced across the ominous clouds a second time, thus shedding its dazzling light. In this next illumination, she beheld a black shape rising out of the sea like a massive pillar. During the third flash of lightning, Livid saw that the waves, which carried her along, were racing forward and crashing into this dark, rising shape. They struck its base with such force that she was sure it would be toppled. But despite these attacks, it stood firm. After a fourth flash of lightning, Livid realized that the pillar-like structure was actually a lofty tower standing alone in the midst of the angry sea. It was round in shape, and was built of black stones that glistened in the darkness. Above, the storm's thick clouds seemed to slowly swirl around its crenellated pinnacle. Within the fifth explosion of light, Livid beheld a lone figure standing upon the tower's battlements. The person was clad in a long black robe and a matching cloak. These both fluttered about in the storm's angry gale. When the lightning illuminated the world a sixth time, Livid found herself standing upon the tower beside the cloaked figure, but she could not see the person's face because their deep hood completely shrouded it in shadows. Then, with a sudden great gust, the wind tore back the black hood, revealing a seductively beautiful woman. And yet, like the clouds overhead, her beauty contained an ominous darkness. While her smooth skin was pasty white and colorless, her long hair, which now whipped about in the wind, was coal black. Her lips and eyelids seemed to be shrouded in shadows, and her eyes were darker yet, for they were like two black glistening pools of midnight completely devoid of all whiteness and color.
"Behold, the Grey Witch,"
a deep voice declared from somewhere behind Livid. The words seemed to rumble from above like the storm's thunder. It was clear that the witch did not hear the voice, nor did she seem aware of Livid, or even of the angry tempest that raged around her. Calmly poised upon the edge of the tower's battlements, the witch held out a small bundle in her pale, thin hands. With ritual solemnity, she slowly unfolded the sable cloth, exposing a tiny baby that was hidden within it. The child was beautiful and completely different from the woman who held her, for she was full of color. She had large, sparkling eyes, which matched the blue-green color of the sea, and her skin had a rich golden hue. The baby's small head was crowned with curling locks of hair, and these were a colorful mix of bright gold, fiery red, and shimmering auburn. The witch gently held the bundled child out over the tower's edge and the precipice beyond. In response, the waves seemed to crash with even greater anger.
Or is it hunger?
The question came unbidden into Livid's mind. Giving no heed to the swells, the Grey Witch whispered in a low voice that could not be heard over the roar of the sea. And then, with a cold, heartless expression upon her thin, pale face, the witch dropped the beautiful child. Flinging out her tiny golden arms as she fell, the baby gasped and then let out a loud, angry cry as she vanished into the darkness below. Watching as the baby disappeared from her sight, Livid lunged after her without thinking. Over the short wall, she dove. As soon as she was plummeting toward the crashing sea below, her gray eyes darted this way and that, but she could find no trace of the falling child.